Welcome to the Randy Gravitt Leadership Podcast, where we help you lead the hardest person you will ever lead, yourself. Here's your host, someone who believes leadership begins at home, Randy Gravitt.
Welcome to this week's show. I'm so excited. I've got a new friend, not a new friend, actually we've been friends for more than a decade, but I got a new friend I'm going to introduce you guys to. Beau Sides is here with us today. Beau, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you're here. Beau is, I can't wait for him to hear your story, but I'll just give you a little glimpse. Beau leads a nonprofit, Global Partners in Life, and it's something we're excited to get to partner with, and you're just doing some great work. But that's not really the whole part of your story. Your story kind of goes way back, and you started out, Beau, at IBM. Right, and maybe other stuff before that. So you've got an interesting story that I'm excited for them to get to hear. So again, welcome. Thank you for hanging out with us. We're just sitting out here on the porch and doing what we like to do. So welcome to the show, man. How's your day so far? You doing all right?
Great day so far, and a beautiful back porch, beautiful weather, and thank you for letting me be part of this.
It's going to be great. We're going to hang out with some leaders here today that'll
continue. Good luck with your podcast.
Be watching from all over the place.
People will.
It's been good so far. We've had a bunch of people downloading and reaching out and all kind of fun stuff. And so if you're listening out there, help us spread the word. I think you'll find some of the things we talk about are helpful. We focus more on self-leadership. And so anyway, Beau's a great leader, and I thought it'd be good for them to hang out with you. So give us a little bit of your background. Give us a little of your story.
Well, thank you again. And so I'm kind of a late bloomer in a couple of ways. One, I was 31 before I became a Christian. And two, for the way most people measured success, I had been doing well in my career, but I realized that what I was doing with IBM, other IT management companies, it really didn't matter in 10 years if I finished a project on time and under budget. And I just had this feeling that there was something more out there. There was something else I should be doing. And I had no idea what it was. And even though I look more like I'm built for a hot dog eating contest, I did play some basketball. And one of my friends who actually did play basketball in college, we played basketball together. And he had a friend from that team that had a job where he would get sports teams together, all kinds of sports, didn't matter which sport, and send them all over the world. So my friend asked me if I'd like to do one of these trips. And I said, yeah, sure. And he said, well, we're going to go play basketball at a university in China. I'm like, well, that sounds great. So we went over there, had no idea what to expect. And, man, just fell in love with the people, fell in love with the culture. And when we returned, I just had this desire to spend more time in China. And gosh, when I did something that took a long time, like driving to work, cutting the grass, or shampooing, that's where my mind would go. And I stayed in touch with the university, and they're like, heck yeah, man, come on back. How about for 2 years? I don't believe I could do that. So they said, we'll make it easy for you. How about 1 year? And I'm like, I don't think I could do that either. And they said, well, the shortest thing we could possibly do would be 1 semester, which was 5 months. Okay. So I got permission from my wife. And
Your wife, Leah.
Got a leave of absence from work. So fat, dumb, and happy, here I am going to China to be a college professor. Right. And if you knew anything about my academic history, you would find some irony in this. And
I do know a little bit about your academic history because you and I, you were at the same. You and I went to the same college for a year, not together, but where I ended up going for 3 years. But you spent a year over in Jacksonville, Alabama, at Jack State.
Yep.
And so I mean, shout out to Jack State. But,
there you go.
But it's not Harvard, So so they were probably not at that time expecting you and me to be professors in China. They still wouldn't be expecting me to be a professor in China, but I do know a little of your academic background. So that's cool. So you end up going and doing it.
Went to China, and one day one of my students was
Were you teaching English?
I was teaching English.
Okay.
One of my students was very sad, and I asked her what was wrong. And she said that there had been a horrible fire in an illegal fireworks factory about an hour away in a really rural area of the county. And so it just so happened we had a teachers meeting for the foreign language department that afternoon, and we asked the Chinese dean of the foreign language department about the fire, and she said, yes, it's true, it was horrible, and that 20 children had become orphans that day. So some of the foreign language teachers and I were talking, we're like, man, we got to do something to help these kids, because we'd found out that there was no orphanage in this area. It's so rural. Like the first time I went there, it still had dirt roads. And so we ponied up some money so that we could keep these kids in school. That was our number one goal. And it became our goal to get all 20 of these students, regardless of their age, through high school.
Oh, wow.
And so we committed to that and hung in there with them. We got them all out except for one. One ran away 1 month before he graduated. We have no idea what happened with him. But so yeah, that was how we started.
And so you came home, and I need to hear this. So how does this organization start? That you've been, what are you, 16 years into this thing now, that you've been leading Global Partners in Life. You came back, and it sounds like your heart was pretty captured by those kids and what was going on over there.
Just seeing and knowing the needs that were there, and I was praying, seeking wise counsel, fasting, reading the Bible. And there was one particular verse that just really resonated with me. It's like a bad song from the 70s. I couldn't get it out of my mind. And that's the first part of James 1:27, which loosely says, the type of religion that's pleasing to God is taking care of orphans and widows. Yeah. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, God, I don't know any widows, and the only orphans I know are in China. Yeah. Do you want me to go to China? Yeah. I'm like, I think I'm going to China. So through this amazing series of events, I no longer worked in the corporate world, and I started a nonprofit called Global Partners in Life. Yeah. And I kept getting more and more teaching jobs in China, met more and more orphans and orphanages. One of the main ones we work with is for special needs children. And it's just been a blessing to help them, to provide for them.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to say. You've had so many kids. I mean, literally now thousands of kids have been touched by the work that you guys do. All kind of surgeries that they've been, they've gone to school. I mean, there's just so much that y'all have done. It's pretty incredible when you look at all that. And so, yeah, well done on that. And how many trips have you made now? Do you know? 61 trips you've made to China. So I got a question for you. So we're in the midst of a global pandemic. If you listen to the media, very much, you hear at times negative talk about China. You have literally seen the beauty in the people there. I've been myself, and it's just it really is an amazing place. What would you say about just about the individuals there and the people? Like I think they're the ones that really won your heart, correct?
Oh, absolutely. They're beautiful people. They are very accepting of me. Even my students, gosh, I was over 20 years older than them, and we would go play basketball together. They'd come to my apartment. We would watch DVDs, just hang out, just do life together.
That's great.
But yeah, they're very accepting. They're humble people as a rule. Very, very stoic, most of them, but just fun loving. Can't say enough about them.
Yeah, that's great. So there's an author that I have read several of his books through the years named Bob Beal. I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Beal. He wrote a book years ago. The first book I think I saw was a book called Halftime. Exactly. And that's right. You've read it as well. And in the book, I'll just kind of paraphrase. One of the main points is that this idea of when you get to this midpoint in your life, similar to where you were when you went on that first basketball trip, he talks about this fundamental shift that happens in a lot of leaders moving from success in the early part of their lives. They think about that. They're building a family, whatever, to moving from success to significance. And there was part of that happened in your story where you felt like IBM's great, nothing wrong with being a part of a company, being a part of a business. Most of the people who listen are not running a nonprofit. But there was this longing to have more significance, have more impact. And a lot of the leaders that listen to this do have tremendous impact where they are. not to say they even need to leave their business, but just having that fundamental shift in their mind of seeing the impact that they can have where they are. What would you say to somebody who can, there could be somebody listening who was like you were, like, they're going up the wrong ladder maybe, and then all of a sudden you're going, man, your mind flipped, and you've just really come alive for 16 years. I mean, I've heard you say so many times, you just feel like you get up every day and you get to do what you love to do. Speak to that a little bit.
Well, the biggest change for me was I no longer was self-centered. January 16th is a personal holiday for myself. I call it Freedom Day. That was the last day I worked in the corporate world. I'm no longer trying to climb the ladder. I'm no longer trying to get a better title, more direct reports, better salary, better office, better car, better house. I'm thinking about other people now.
Trying to make life better for others all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's not all about me anymore.
Wow.
And that was just, the lights went on for me, and
went off and went on.
yeah. So just thinking more about others and less about myself, and I've been richly blessed and rewarded through that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, what are some of the things you do? Obviously, we talk a lot about self-leadership. What are some of the things you do to take care of yourself? You're running this organization. You've got some people that have helped you and, are helping you, but pretty much you got to set your own schedule. You got to take care of your own body, everything you're in charge of you, right? And you're in charge of leading this thing. What are some things you do to take care of yourself, and maybe some things that leaders that might be listening could do to make sure their tank is full and they're calibrated correctly? Talk to that a little bit.
Well, first of all, by far the greatest thing I've ever done for self-leadership was becoming a Christian. That was a huge event in my life.
That shifted your heart toward others is what you shared
absolutely.
with me before. So that's
absolutely.
great.
And my life has been so much better since then.
Yeah, that's good.
And I realized I cheated myself out of so many of these blessings that I'm enjoying now, because I grew up going to church, and it was just my dadgum pride and arrogance and skin that was keeping me from accepting Jesus as my Lord and Savior.
Okay, that's good.
But to better answer your question, I really had to recast the vision, not only for myself, but for the board of directors I was recruiting to help me here, and I've been very blessed with an awesome board of directors, but also for the people with whom we partner overseas. We're in China, India, and Peru. Cast the vision for them. Like, this is what I see us doing. Would you like to partner with us in accomplishing these goals? So I have to cast a vision for them, as well as casting a vision for donors and potential donors. I have to just really re-educate myself, because, again, my background was IT management, which doesn't have much at all to do with
Peru or India or China or,
trying
maybe
to help orphans and widows with their humanitarian, educational, and medical needs.
Yeah.
So just casting the vision, just completely re-educating myself into cultures, into government restrictions, into the actual environments, the needs of the people we're trying to reach. And so I had to learn. I got some coaching. I tried to surround myself with wise people. I meet with a great group of people, great group of guys, as you know. We've been meeting for 20 plus years, and just get wise counsel for them, as well as the board of directors. And I try to always ask successful people in the field that I was in, ask them all kind of questions so I could learn from them. And I learned a lot from my own mistakes. There have been plenty of those. And so I just want to celebrate the victories that we have, get more people involved, just not only in America, but also in the other countries. Just we're building community.
Yeah,
we're going through life together.
That's good. Let me press on one of the things you talked about there, your board of directors, your men's group, some of those kind of things. you have sometimes when you're on your own, so to speak, or you're the leader, it's easy to find yourself in isolation. Or I think isolation's a choice. It's easy to isolate yourself if you're not careful. You've not done that. You've made yourself accountable to people, to groups of people. You've lived your life really these last 20 years, seeking counsel, seeking coaching, all those kinds of things. And I know from being friends with you that accountability is a really important thing to you. Talk about the power of accountability in the life of a leader, because I think sometimes it's easy for us to if we're not careful, we think we might be above accountability if we're in charge, and that nothing can be further from the truth. Talk about the importance of accountability.
I completely agree with you. To me, integrity goes along with that. And as the leader of a very small nonprofit, if I don't have integrity, I'll never make it. The nonprofit organization will just tank. Yeah. And so any and everything we can do as far as being good stewards, stewardship is huge for me. We want to do that. I actually have written a couple of books.
I was going to ask you about your books. Yeah. And I want you to talk about both of them.
Okay.
But in a minute. But stay on accountability there for one more second.
One of the board members, great wise man, Mark Miller, challenged me to write a book. And I've always heard Mark encourage people to do something different. Don't go to the same vacation spot every year. Read a book about something you know nothing about. Yeah. And he challenged me to write a book. And I'm like, well, that is like the utmost extreme of something I know nothing about doing. And so...
And now you're 2 books in.
I'm 2 books in. So the first book is called Lessons from China. And it's just about the cultural things I learned, the history I learned about China.
If anybody's interested in China, it's a great book on Chinese culture, what's going on, some of the stories of the people there. It's a cool book. Yeah.
And thank you for saying that.
Get the book.
And the second book is called Unseen Tears. And I really didn't want to write another book, but there's one little boy at the special needs orphanage who was abandoned by his parents because he had these horrible burns on his face. And bless his heart, the school didn't want to let him in because it said his face is so distorted, he would be a distraction to the kids. The kids would pick on him so much, he would be unhappy. Luckily, the leader of the special need orphanage went to fight for him, and she won the battle. They enrolled him. He is a senior in high school right now.
That's great.
And he has the best. He's a #1 student in his class.
And that's fantastic.
And this little guy, he used to I could hold my arm like this, and he would climb me like a monkey.
Yeah.
I kept thinking about him, and there's no way in my heart I could say I didn't try to write a book, to tell your story, to be the voice of all the orphans I've seen all around China and all the different orphanages I've been in. They have no voice.
Yeah.
I wanted to be their voice. Somebody had to tell their story. So that's what the second book is about, the different orphanages I've been in.
I love the fact that you are fighting for those who in some ways can't fight for themselves. You and your work that's going on. It's really cool. And Unseen Tears is fantastic.
Thank you.
Read that one too. Shout out to Beau's books here. So let's talk about writing here for a second, which is a little off of the topic of what the books are about. But just for somebody who's a creative or somebody who's thinking about writing a book or they've got a big project, what are some of the things that maybe you can tie this into the accountability piece as well? But what are some of the things you would say about the power of just grinding it out? And I mean, because I know personally that writing those books is a challenge, and so especially for you would say, I think you didn't think, hey, I grew up, I want to be a writer. I mean, here you are writing books, So talk about anybody that might be listening who's got something big on their plate and that they may not want to tackle. How hard is it? How rewarding is it? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I don't consider myself a writer by any means. I just had some stories to tell, and that's what I was doing. It does consume time, and it was almost like a leadership decision to me in that I knew I didn't have the skills and talent I needed, so I had to surround myself with people that did. very blessed to find an organization called Weaving Influence, led by a wonderful person named
Shout
Becky
out to
Robinson.
Becky. Yeah, she's a friend.
Great lady.
Up in Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything and everything I needed done, Becky and her team could do that.
Helped you with the social media, helped you with the
social
writing,
media,
all kind of stuff. Yeah. That's good.
The graphic design of the cover, the editing, all of that. They took me the whole way through.
So you had some people to help.
Tears.
You had a team of people. That's good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Could not have done it on my own.
Yeah. So you talk about books that you've been writing. Talk to me about some of the books that you have been reading. Some of the books that you like. And one of the things we remind leaders is that it's important to be reading. I think it really primes the pump of our thinking, of our heart, of our, it just gives us a chance to bump up against other people's thinking and really helps our own thinking as we go. So what are some of the, you got some books that you've been reading? I'm always asking people, like, what you reading or what have you read that's really had an impact on you?
Yeah, I really liked Resonate by Nancy Duarte, and really gave me a new way of thinking and looking at things.
Yeah. Great book on visual presentation, but she really has done a good job on reminding how to tell a story. Really, just how to tell a story. And the audience is the hero, and some of that. That's good stuff. That's a great book. Yeah. What
Extreme Ownership by the military men.
Jocko. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about that book?
Gosh, it just pointed out to me how I truly have an opportunity to be much more thorough in my thoughts and plans.
Okay.
Really need to pick it up there.
Yeah, that's good. We like to remind leaders that if you're the leader, you're in charge not just of your own outcomes, but also the outcomes of those that you lead. And so that book is
absolutely,
that book is just right on point with
and the stories are amazing.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. What else you got? Anything else?
Yeah, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
I just read that this year. John Mark Comer, and that book, oh my goodness, it just has helped me think about slowing down. What was your impression?
And necessary endings going along with that.
Yeah.
I know it used to be such a cliche to say multitasking, but I'm finding that I do better work when I don't multitask, when I'm more focused on
just focus and
also
lock in.
The more trash I get rid of in my life,
the
more distractions, the less I do, the better I do the main thing.
Yeah. So let's take Henry Cloud wrote Necessary Endings and this idea of pruning your life. Let's talk about that a second. Like, I think leaders, if we're not careful, I think anybody, not just leaders, but we can let clutter build up around us in our homes, in our inbox, in our, in our schedule, whatever. What would you say to the leader who might be overwhelmed with a bunch of stuff right now? I mean, you talked about freedom earlier with some of the other things, but how freeing is that to be able to prune some of the things out of your life? And how do you go about doing that? Like, you seem to do a pretty good job of it. How do you help us?
I truly think delegation is an art form. If you can find someone with the skill sets you need, let them know what they're going to be measured against, when they're going to be measured, how they're going to be measured, what their expectations are, communicate with them clearly and frequently. Man, it just frees you as the leader to cast the vision, to look for the future, to make those plans to help your company or organization grow and be successful. Huge.
That's so great. So let's shift the conversation and talk about outside of work for a second. One of the things that I like to, remind leaders is that you can win from 9 to 5, but if you lose from 5 to 9, you still lose. I mean, it might be with your marriage, with your family, might be with the way you take care of your body, your finances. I mean, pick anything that happens outside of work. And I think when you get the self-leadership part right, then it actually positions you to win at work. But one of the things we like to remind leaders is you need to have some time to play and to do some fun stuff. And I've got actually with me here a jar of your world famous salsa that you have been making for I don't know how long. Actually, this is not available. except for very special people. So I was lucky enough to steal a jar from somebody. So no, actually, I appreciate that. You hooked me up there. So tell me the salsa story. How did this start? And are you a cook? Are you a chef? I mean, like, what's your deal, man? How do we get this famous salsa?
I do like to cook, but I cook like comfort food. I don't use recipes. I just throw it together. It tastes good to me. I'm happy. So, but I do like to kind of go back to my roots.
Okay.
Grandparents were from Alabama, and they had their own orchards. They had their own cattle. They had their own gardens.
Okay.
So they would always can, and so doing things like this are just part of my heritage.
That's good.
Just like I love to make blueberry and blackberry cobblers now, and I'm making the way my grandmother did. I grow my own blueberries and blackberries.
They're pretty strong.
And I roll out the dough. I put the dumplings in the cobbler and put a nice crust on top.
It's
put some butter on it, sprinkle a little sugar.
Lunchtime here. That would be really good today.
I just enjoy that.
Yeah, that's good. So you make the salsa here, and it's like this will light you up pretty good. How long you been doing that? Been doing
I
it
would
for long?
say close to 13 years.
Okay, so
yeah.
for several years, and that's one of the things. So talk about a little bit about the cooking, some of that kind of stuff you're describing, just being able to almost detach in a way from everything else and go have some fun doing that kind of stuff. Talk about that a little bit. I know you're also a big sports fan. You enjoy college football, some of that kind of stuff. Talk about the importance of having an outlet to not always have to be on, as a leader. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I do enjoy sports, especially this time of year.
Yeah,
college football is the number one for me. But also, I love to exercise, and I know probably don't look like it, but I try to at least 5 times a week to do something, and I feel physically at my best when I'm sweating profusely, and like I've started riding a bike because I'm getting so old that my legs are sore after I jog.
They don't like the running.
No, they don't, not at all. But man, when you're out there on the bike, your mind can just drift.
And you do some like 20 mile. I mean, talk a little bit about your bike riding. I mean, you go some distances here, right?
Yeah, I think about 23, 24, 25 miles is about 25 miles is the longest bike ride I've ever been on.
Okay. But you like to get out and get on the roads and go. I mean,
yeah, it's very clearing for your mind, and it just lets you have your thoughts go where they will.
Do you find yourself thinking on those rides? And I know a lot of times years ago I would do a lot of running, and it was a good time to do some thinking, to do some recalibrating, to come up with some ideas and some of those kind of things. Does that happen for you?
It's funny how something will just pop in your mind. You're like, wow, where did that come from? Oh, I need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. How do you take an idea like that pops up? Because this happens to all of us in different, maybe somebody's is on the golf course and somebody's on a fishing boat and somebody's, on the beach, whatever. But you have this idea. How do you turn that into, because you've done some really cool stuff with your, you've had these ideas and then all of a sudden it moves from China to Peru to India. I mean, you've done some of that stuff. So how do you take it and turn it into action?
Well, again, I have just been surrounded by a wonderful board of directors, great people that I can get wise counsel from, run it past them.
People to brainstorm with.
Yeah. Like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Well, what's your take on that?
Yeah.
So I'll always try to get some wise counsel before I jump off the deep end.
That's good. All right. So, if you could leave some advice to the leaders who are listening, like you got a piece of advice or a nugget that you would say, hey, here's something. If I'm out there and I'm watching and I'm trying to lead myself, I remind leaders all the time, the hardest person you're going to lead is going to be you. Because, I look in the mirror and I'm like, that guy right there, if I could handle him, I'd be all right, but you got some advice for us that would be helpful?
Yeah, I would say find out what your strengths are and do that. I'd also encourage you to find out or think more about what you're passionate about doing and pursue that. And don't be afraid to make a mistake, because that's just a great opportunity to learn.
That's so good. I love that. Find your strength, find your passion. And honestly, we could go back to where we were in the beginning of the conversation. I think that's one of the things that will move you from being successful to really being significant and having that impact that we talked about, right? I mean, yeah, that's good. That's so good. And then I love that idea at the end that you just shared. This idea of being a person who wants to grow. You know, you're willing to fail, you're willing to try stuff, you're willing to fall down and get back up, and that's really powerful. Well, thank you again for being with us. Tell us where we can find you. If somebody wants to connect with you, I would encourage anybody who's looking for something to support that's making an impact in the world, globally, literally, reach out to Global Partners in Life and support them. We do. It's so awesome. But where can we get in touch with you? How can people find you if they're looking to find you?
Our organization, Global Partners in Life, has a website, www.globalpartnersinlife.org. I have a website also, beausides.com.
BEAU sides.com. I always say BEA beautiful. My main man here. That's good. So beausides.com, or they can go to globalpartnersinlife.com.
Yes.
Or is it .org?
.org.
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 ORG.
Yeah.
Can we put a link on the YouTube channel? Yeah. Stuart's saying, yeah. So that's good. That's good. And so they can find you there.
Twitter, Instagram,
Yeah,
all
and I
the
have-
social
I actually
media.
have copies of the books here. Lessons from China, Beau Sides. I see the bicycle on the front there. That's not the one you ride, but
Janice Rutledge helped me write that
Janice,
one also.
I know Janice as well. And then Unseen Tears. This is your latest book, and again, for those of you who are watching, I'm holding this up. Unseen Tears available. They can get this on your website as well. Get these books.
Amazon.
Or at Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywhere books are sold. So Unseen Tears, Beau's latest book. Again, thank you for being with us, man. I know this is going to be an encouragement to people who listen. And thank you for the work you do. I know you're having serious impact in the world. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you will pass this along to somebody you know and help us continue to grow the audience. And I hope you'll not forget this week that leadership begins at home. We're going to come back next week, and we're going to be talking about being authentic in the workplace, being authentic at home. We got a really great interview for you next week with another guest. But in the meantime, go out there and make it happen this week. Remember, if you can't lead yourself first, you're going to have a hard time leading other people. But if you'll get that right, everybody's going to benefit. Leadership really does begin at home.
Thanks for listening to the Randy Gravitt Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, we ask you to leave a review if you haven't already, and subscribe so you'll be alerted when we post new content. We also encourage you to share a link with your friends. Tune in Friday for another episode with a special guest leader. Now, go lead yourself first. Remember, leadership begins at home.